This is Faith Under Fire. We take you straight to the voices on the front lines of religious battlegrounds. I'm news anchor Sarah Harnish, and with me today, Focus on the Family spokesperson, attorney Nicole Hunt. We're talking Pride Month. Focus on the Family just got labeled a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center. Tell me what's going on.
For the first time in our 48-year history as an organization, Focus on the Family was listed as a hate group, basically because we're faithful Christians who adhere to the teachings of the Old Testament and the New Testament and biological reality about gender and marriage.
What other groups are on the list? Are there other Christian organizations?
There are. There's actually so many great organizations that have been on their, quote, hate list for so many years, including Alliance Defending Freedom. They are a pro-life, pro-family, pro-marriage legal organization. Family Research Council, one of our allied organizations. Family Policy Council, also an allied organization. Moms for Liberty, they're on the list. And many state-based family policy councils. It's a who's who list of impactful Christian organizations that are defending faith-based and common sense reality about marriage and gender.
This is really destructive language to put them on as a hate group, especially with the civil rights background in the United States. It has a totally different meaning to most people. Focus on the Family president, Jim Daly, issued a statement, and I love what he said. Quote, "Conviction makes us anti-sin, not anti-anybody." Are Christians homophobic and intolerant?
Certainly not based on our faith-based worldview. I mean, the truth is that just because Christians believe that men and women and male and female are objective realities and that sex creates babies and should be reserved for natural monogamous marriage, that doesn't make you homophobic or intolerant. And ironically, it would appear that what SPLC is doing by creating this faux hate list is creating a way to hate Christians.
Yeah, all Christian groups would technically be hate groups if they adhere to biblical values. So do we just watch one by one as Christian companies get branded with radical terminology? How do we win the word war?
Yeah, well, that's such a good question because the truth is that this line of reasoning, it doesn't only label Christian groups as hate groups. It would also label any non-Christian group, people of goodwill who adhere to common sense biological truths about reality as a hate group as well. It really is total nonsense. The truth is that SPLC is using this list as a gimmick, to use it as a fundraising tool for their organization because SPLC, it really is a radical organization that's been very careless with the word hate. They throw it around so much that it's really just lost all meaning, and its primary purpose is to help them fundraise for their organization.
What is Focus on the Family doing after making an LGBTQ plus hate list?
Well, I'll tell you what, our first reaction was, what took them so long? Focus on the Family, we've been around since 1977. We're in our 48th year, and we have followed the same guiding principles in our ministry the entire time. The first is the value of male and female, that we are intentionally created, one sex or the other, by God for a purpose, and it's a good purpose. The second one has to do with natural marriage being between one man and one woman. Marriage is a covenant that God designed to model Christ's love for his people and to serve as a public and a private good in our human civilization. And then third, we have a social responsibility to influence culture for God's design and for God's purpose. And so these are things that Focus on the Family has been advocating for decades. We're glad that we finally made the list because we know that we're alongside so many other great organizations who are impacting culture for God's truth and for biological reality. Them calling us names, it really just doesn't bother us at all.
I love that you hold the line and hold the message and probably put a bullhorn to your lips during Pride Month of all the months.
It's an opportunity to talk about it and to remind people that we should not be afraid to speak the truth.
Are you seeing a shift nationwide after President Trump, in his inauguration speech, declared that the government recognizes two genders, male and female. Do you sense the climate changing?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because it does appear that the actions of the current administration to push back against the cultural lies of LGBT ideology really is making a difference, with the executive orders coming out, the current administration saying we're not going to accept this. In fact, we're going to pull funding. It has, I believe, helped Americans to have more courage to stand up and to refuse to perpetuate the lies of LGBT ideology. And I would caution that with a follow-up saying that it really is imperative for all Christians and truly any American of goodwill to continue to stand firm on those convictions. We're hearing day in and day out, right, about boys winning all kinds of sports titles in female sports. And it's important. Who's going to stand up for our girls if we don't? Even if the current administration wasn't taking such a strong stand, it really is imperative that the rest of us, and especially Christians, because we know the truth, that we stand firm, unafraid, and have courage to continue to speak the truth to a culture that really has believed the darkness and lies of our culture for far too long.
Despite the hate mongering, the hate lists, and the name calling, right?
That's right.
CNN is running a story this week, and the headline reads, "Big brands are pulling back on Pride merchandise and events this year." Do you think this is the new normal, or is this the new normal just during the Trump presidency?
I hope it's indicative of trending away from the lies of the LGBT movement. But I will say this, all of these businesses, their bottom line is they want to make money. And so it is imperative for the American people, and especially Christians, to continue to convey to these businesses that we don't want to do business that way. And if you're going to do business that way, we don't want to do business with you. Because that conveys to them that these are the things that we value. And by the way, we're going to protect our kids. We're going to protect our marriages, and we're going to make sure that we don't have to walk into Target and see a bunch of LGBT clothes everywhere, or we just won't go there. So it's imperative upon Christians and Americans of goodwill who believe in biological truth and reality to continue to demand truth in marketing and in advertising and in the selling of goods.
And in the bullying, too, and what we allow and what we accept, because it's become normal for large groups like this to propagate hate lists.
Yeah, that's right.
There are Christians that say, let them do what they want to do. Love is love. I won't bother them. They won't bother me. What's wrong with that statement as a believer?
For Christians, we know that if we love our neighbor, we're called to speak the truth to them. We also know that sin has eternal consequences. And as President Daley said, this isn't about calling out or hating any particular group. This is about hating sin. It's about having conviction that sin is wrong. And so as Christians, we know that sin has eternal consequences for our neighbors. And our failure to allow God to use us to speak truth in love to our neighbors in our community is going to allow them to continue on a path of sin. And so I would call all Christians back to the truth that we are to speak love in a loving way, but we are to speak the truth to those around us.
Why do you speak out about Pride Month?
A lot of it comes back to the commandment to love your neighbor as you love yourself, to be honest and to be truthful. I think as an organization, have focus on the family. It comes back to the truth of the fact that we know that human flourishing happens when we value that distinction between male and female, because we're made complementary for one another. And then in marriage, you're able to foster a family and you can build a secure and safe society and community. And all of that builds a strong and safe nation for you to raise your family. I feel like a lot of what drives the Christian narrative comes from love, a place of love, and then also wanting to lead quiet and peaceful lives. And so we have to be willing to stand strong and to be bold so that we can preserve that way of living for future generations.
Have you at Focus on the Family seen victories against LGBTQ plus groups? Do you think that there is a victory on this side of the culture war?
We're praying for it, that's for sure. Organizations like XXXY, which advocates for real women in women's sports, they also just filed a lawsuit because the new law would require that any marketing or advertising that recognizes biological truth about gender is discriminatory and could be sued by the state of Colorado. XXXY, which advocates for the real truth of biological gender, wouldn't be able to even advertise their company or their branding in Colorado without being sued. So there are a lot of fronts where we need to continue to press ahead, unafraid and with courage. And I'm really grateful for the organizations who filed lawsuits against those laws. But I think we can be hopeful that there are this just tremendous tidal wave of support about common sense biological truth that is sweeping the nation at the federal level. We find ourselves in a real culture war today. So we can be encouraged where we're making advances and then continue to fight where there are still fires on the front line.
Learn more at focusonthefamily.com.